Amelia Earhart's disappearance has remained one of history's biggest avaiation mysteries. The pioneer pilot, along with her plane, have been missing for deacdes, but after 87 years, something incredible has been found. Deep in the ocean, a mysterious object was discovered, one that matches her lost aircraft, which has raised the hope of people all over the world. Is this the moment the world finally learns the truth? Could this really be the end of the search? Join us as we uncover the discovery that could finally solve the legend of Amelia Earhart. The story of Amelia Earhart. Amelia Mary Earhart was born into the world on July 24, 1897, in Atchison, Kansas. She was born in the home of her grandfather, Alfred Gideon Otis, who was an important man in town. Amelia's parents were Samuel Edwin Stanton Earhart and Amelia Otis Earhart. Before her birth, her mother had lost a baby in 1896. 2 years after Amelia was born, she became an older sister to Grace Muriel Earhart. Amelia and her sister were full of energy and curiosity. Every day they would go out to explore their surroundings. Amelia, especially, had a strong sense of adventure. She enjoyed climbing trees and spent time with her sister, nicknamed Pidge, doing daring things like firing at rats with a rifle and racing downhill on sleds. Many people later described her as a tomboy. Amelia once built a ramp inspired by a roller coaster she saw in St. Louis. With her uncle's help, she placed the ramp on the roof of their tool shed and rode down in a wooden box. It ended with her dress torn and her lip bruised, but the experience filled her with joy. In 1907, her father got a new job that required the family to move to Des Moines, Iowa. 1 year later, when she was 10, Amelia saw her first airplane at the Iowa State Fair. It did not excite her. The plane looked old and badly made. When their father asked if the girls wanted to ride in it, Amelia just wanted to go back to the fair rides. She didn't think much of flying at that moment. For a while, the two sisters stayed with their grandparents in Atchison, while their parents lived in Des Moines. During this time, their mother and a governess taught them at home. Amelia grew to love reading and often spent long hours in the family library. When the family came back together in 1909, the girls were enrolled in public school for the first time. Amelia was 12 years old and entered the 7th grade. It seemed like things were going well. The family had a new home and even had 2 servants, but the good times didn't last. It became clear that Amelia's father, Edwin, had a drinking problem. In 1914, he lost his job and tried to get treatment, but the railroad company never took him back. Around this same time, Amelia's grandmother passed away. She left behind a large amount of money, but she made sure it went into a trust to keep Edwin from spending it all. After her passing, the Otis family house was sold, along with everything in it. Amelia later said this was the moment her childhood came to an end. In 1915, after looking for work for some time, Edwin finally got a job with the Great Northern Railway in St. Paul, Minnesota. Amelia joined Central High School as a junior, but soon, Edwin lost the job again when the person he replaced decided not to retire. Left with no choice, Amelia's mother took her daughters to Chicago. They moved in with friends and tried to start over, but Amelia didn't settle easily. She wanted to find a school that took science seriously. She visited several schools and decided not to attend the one closest to their home. Eventually, she joined Hyde Park High School. She didn't enjoy her time there. She kept to herself, and a yearbook caption even described her as the girl in brown who walks alone. Despite this, she managed to finish her studies and graduated in 1916. After high school, Amelia went on to junior college at the Ogontz School in Rydell, Pennsylvania, but she didn't finish her program there. Her mind was already beginning to wander toward bigger dreams. Throughout her early life, Amelia never stopped thinking about her future. She collected newspaper stories about women who were doing jobs usually done by men. These included roles in filmmaking, law, advertising, engineering, and business. She admired women who challenged expectations and did not let gender stop them from reaching their goals. Her love for reading, science, and stories about strong women helped shape the person she would become. From her early years, Amelia showed signs of a bold spirit. Whether exploring, reading, or aspiring to stand out, she always sought out new experiences. Though life brought many changes and difficulties, especially with her father's struggles and the family's financial troubles, she found ways to keep learning and growing. Amelia's path was far from smooth, but each step added something to the remarkable woman she was destined to be. A newfound passion. In the winter of 1917, during the Christmas holidays, Amelia Earhart traveled to Toronto to visit her sister. While there, she saw soldiers returning from World War I, many of them hurt and in pain. Seeing these men deeply moved her. Wanting to help, she trained with the Red Cross to become a nurse's aide. After her training, she started working with the Voluntary Aid Detachment at Spadina Military Hospital. Her work there involved preparing food for patients who needed special meals and giving out medicine at the hospital's dispensary. It was in this place, surrounded by injured men and their stories, that Amelia heard pilots speak about their flying experiences. These stories sparked something new in her, a strong interest in flying. Not long after, in the early 1920s, she and a friend went to an air show that was part of the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. Among all the attractions, one particular unexpected moment changed her life. A World War I pilot put on a flying show, and while flying, he noticed Amelia and her friend watching from a clearing. He pointed his plane straight at them and dived. While most people might have run, Amelia did not move. She stayed right where she was, completely still. The red plane zoomed past her, and though she didn't fully understand it at the time, she felt something stir inside her. That plane had left an impression she couldn't forget. On December 28, 1920, Amelia went with her father to an aerial meet at Doherty Field in Long Beach, California. After watching the planes, she asked her father to help arrange a short flight for her. The very next day, she paid $10 for a ride with pilot Frank Hawks, who later became famous as an air racer. During that 10-minute flight, as the plane rose a few hundred feet in the air, Amelia knew without any doubt that she needed to fly. In January 1921, she took her first flying lesson. Her instructor was Nada Snook, one of the few female pilots at the time. The lessons cost $500, which was a lot of money back then. Amelia worked hard to save up the amount by doing different jobs like driving a truck, working as a photographer, and doing office work as a stenographer. Her mother, although unsure about the idea, also helped her with some of the money. To get to the flying field, Amelia had to take a bus and then walk for 4 miles. The plane she trained in was an old broken-down Curtiss JN-4 Canuck that Snook had fixed up. Amelia cut her hair short to look like the other female pilots. 6 months after her first lesson, despite Snook's warnings, Amelia bought her own airplane. It was a used bright yellow biplane called a Kinner Airster, which she named the Canary. After her first solo landing, she bought herself a leather flying jacket. When other people teased her about the coat looking too new, she made it look worn by sleeping in it and rubbing oil on it. Later that year, in October 1922, she took the Canary up into the sky and reached a height of 14,000 feet. This set a world record for women pilots at the time. Then, on May 16, 1923, she became the 16th woman in the United States to get a pilot's license from the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale. While living in Medford, Massachusetts, Amelia kept flying. She joined the Boston chapter of the American Aeronautical Society and was later chosen as its vice president. In 1927, she made the first official flight out of Denison Airport in Quincy and helped support the airport by putting in some of her own money. Around the same time, she worked for Kinner Aircraft as a sales representative and wrote newspaper articles to get more people interested in aviation. Her name became more well-known, and she began thinking about starting a group for women pilots. Then, the following year, a big opportunity came her way. George P. Putnam, a publisher and promoter, invited her to take part in a transatlantic flight. She wasn't the one flying the plane, but she would be the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean as a passenger. The plane was a Fokker F-7B/3M called Friendship. It took off from Tripassi Harbor in Newfoundland on June 17, 1928, with pilot Wilma Stultz and mechanic Louis Gordon. Unfortunately, the flight was difficult due to mechanical problems and stormy weather, but after 20 hours, 40 minutes in the air, they landed safely in Bury Port, Wales. The news of their flight spread around the world. Amelia became famous overnight. People admired her for her courage and strength, and she became a role model for women everywhere. Meanwhile, just a couple of months later, in August that same year, Amelia made another big achievement. She became the first woman to fly solo across the North American continent and return. Over time, her flying skills became better and more respected. Even professional pilots who flew with her saw her talent. One of them, General Lee Wade, flew with her in 1929 and said she had a natural ability and a smooth touch with the airplane controls. Through hard work, bravery, and a deep love for flying, Amelia Earhart built a name for herself. She didn't just fly planes, she inspired others to believe they could do anything, and this drove her to want to do more. The journey round the world. In early 1936, Amelia Earhart began to prepare for a big journey. She wanted to fly around the world. Others had done this before, but her flight would cover a longer path. She planned to follow a route close to the equator, which meant traveling about 29,000 miles. If she completed it, she would be the first woman to do so. Part of her plan was to get attention from the public, which would help promote a book she wanted to write later about the journey. Purdue University helped by setting up the Amelia Earhart Fund for Aeronautical Research. They gave her $50,000, which would be worth over $1 million today. With that money, she bought a special airplane called the Lockheed Electra 10E. The aircraft was built in July 1936 by the Lockheed Aircraft Company in Burbank, California. It had 2 engines and was built with extra fuel tanks and many changes made to fit the long trip. Earhart called it her flying laboratory. For her journey, Earhart chose Harry Manning to help her navigate. He had been the captain of the ship that brought her home from Europe back in 1928. He was a pilot and a skilled radio operator. He also knew Morse code, which was important for sending messages. Originally, the plan was simple. Earhart would fly the plane and Manning would handle the navigation. The two of them, along with George Putnam, who had become her husband, took a flight across the United States during training. On that trip, Earhart used landmarks to know where they were. Manning tried to do a navigation check, but he made a small mistake that caused concern. His error put them in the wrong state. They were near the border, but Putnam still worried. To check Manning's skills again, Putnam and Mance arranged a night flight. During that flight, Manning was off by 20 miles, which some thought was okay. But Putnam and Mance felt they needed someone more accurate. That's when they added Fred Noonan to the team. Through friends in the aviation world, they found him. Noonan had a strong background in navigation by the stars, which would be needed for parts of the trip. He was licensed as a sea captain and had worked as a navigator for both ships and planes. He had recently left Pan American World Airways, where he helped create flight paths across the Pacific for the company's seaplanes. He also trained other navigators to fly between San Francisco and Manila. In the initial plan, Noonan would only help from Hawaii to Howland Island. After that, Manning would join again, and then Earhart would continue the final leg on her own. Eventually, the team changed. Manning left before the flight began. That meant only Earhart and Noonan would take on the challenge. They left Miami on June 1, 1937. Along the way, they stopped in South America, Africa, India, and parts of Southeast Asia. On June 29th, they arrived in Lae, New Guinea. By that point, they had traveled about 22,000 miles. What remained was 7,000 miles over the Pacific Ocean. After preparations, on July 2, 1937, they left Lae, heading for Howland Island. This part of the flight was dangerous because Howland was a tiny island in a large ocean. A ship called the Itasca from the United States Coast Guard waited near the island to help with communication and navigation. Everything was planned carefully, but things still went wrong. While in the air, Earhart and Noonan started to have trouble with their radios. They were supposed to stay in touch with the Itasca, but something went wrong with their signals. Earhart sent several messages, explaining they were flying in poor weather and couldn't see much. She said it was cloudy and that they were struggling to find the island. At 7:42 a.m., Earhart gave her location using a set of numbers. What these numbers suggested was that they were still 200 miles away, but their messages kept cutting in and out. They had trouble matching the right radio frequencies with the Itasca, so communication was not clear. The Itasca tried everything to guide them, but it didn't work. In her last message, Earhart said they were flying north and south, likely in a search pattern. Then, the signal went silent. Nothing more was heard from the plane. One possible explanation is that their plane ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean near Howland Island. Dorothy Cochran, a curator at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, believes this. She said that the strength of Earhart's last radio message showed they were close to the island. Earhart had said they must be near. Cochran explained that it was possible they couldn't spot the island in time and had no choice but to land the plane in the ocean. Sadly, that day marked the beginning of one of the biggest mysteries in aviation history: the search and conspiracy theories. After news spread that Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan had vanished during their attempt to fly around the world watched in shock. The flight that was meant to set a record ended in disappearance. Earhart and Noonan were never found, and what happened after that final message remains unknown. Their disappearance led to one of the biggest search efforts ever seen. For weeks, ships and planes covered more than 250,000 square miles of ocean in hopes of finding them. Despite all efforts, there were no signs of the plane or its passengers, and the mystery has puzzled people for generations. The last message anyone received from Earhart came at 8:43 a.m., local time near Howland Island. She said they were close to the island but couldn't see it, and their fuel was running low. After that message, no further contact was made. Her aircraft, a Lockheed Electra, simply vanished, leaving no trace behind. The United States responded quickly. Navy ships, Coast Guard boats, and military planes were sent out across the Pacific. They focused their search on the route between New Guinea and Howland Island, hoping to find floating debris, wreckage, or even signs of life. One of the main vessels used was the USS Lexington, an aircraft carrier which led the mission along with other ships and search planes. They checked every possible area where the plane could have gone down based on fuel range and planned direction. Even though the effort was huge and covered a wide area, they found nothing. No plane, no people, no evidence. The operation lasted for weeks, but with no useful leads and fewer chances of a rescue, the search was eventually stopped. After that, many people began to form ideas and guesses about what really happened to Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. Some believed the plane crashed into the sea and sank. Others thought they might have landed on an island and passed away there, waiting for help that never came. Because no one could find solid proof, these ideas continued for years. Historians, researchers, and fans of Earhart kept looking for answers, and the mystery became one of the most talked about in aviation history. As the years passed, more strange theories began to appear. One of the most talked about ideas suggested that Amelia Earhart was not just flying for fame. This theory claimed she was secretly working for the United States government, spying on the Japanese in the Pacific. At the time, tension between the United States and Japan was rising. With war on the horizon, the Pacific was becoming more important for military planning, and some believed Earhart was asked to help gather information because of her fame and flying experience. People who supported this idea pointed to a private meeting that reportedly took place just before her final flight. In April, Amelia supposedly met with two of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's top advisors at a military base in California. The meeting was kept secret, and because no one knew what was discussed, some guessed it had something to do with spying missions. Another detail that made people suspicious was her change in route. Originally, Earhart planned to fly west from California to Hawaii, then across the Pacific, but she changed her plan and flew east instead, starting in Miami and heading toward Howland Island. This new path brought her closer to the Marshall Islands, which were under Japanese control at the time. Some thought this change wasn't just a travel choice, but part of a bigger plan. The plane she flew was also a focus for these theories. It had advanced equipment, including radio gear and navigation tools that were ahead of their time. Some believed this equipment could be used to gather military information or listen in on radio signals. A few people even said they had seen Earhart and Noonan captured by the Japanese after crashing near the Marshall Islands. These reports were never proven, but they added fuel to the theory. Years later, another unusual idea gained attention. It was known as the New Identity Theory. This idea claimed that Amelia Earhart survived the crash and returned to the United States under a different name. In 1970, Joe Klaus published a book that said Earhart had been taken by the Japanese, later rescued, and brought back home secretly. According to the book, she started a new life as a woman named Irene Bolam. This story became even more popular in the 1990s when a journalist named Randall Brink said he had found more clues. He pointed to a woman in New Jersey named Irene Bolam, who looked a lot like Earhart. She had once worked as an investment banker and joined groups that supported women's rights, just like Earhart. Another odd thing was that Bolam had no public records before the mid-1940s, which made people wonder if she had hidden her past. Those who supported the theory compared photos and claimed the two women had matching features. They also thought Bolam's personal history had some strange gaps, but Bolam strongly denied the claim. She said she was not Earhart and took legal steps to stop people from spreading the story. Despite the many stories and guesses, no one has been able to confirm what happened to Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. While many believe the plane simply crashed into the ocean, others are drawn to the possibility of secret missions and hidden identities. But it hasn't ended. Amelia's plane discovery update. Amelia Earhart's disappearance has remained one of the biggest mysteries in aviation history. For nearly 90 years, many people have searched for answers about where she went and what happened to her plane. Now, new underwater images have given some researchers fresh hope. A team scanning the Pacific Ocean with sonar equipment recently spotted what looked like a small plane. The object was found deep under the water, close to 16,000 feet below the surface. The team behind the discovery thinks it might be the same plane Earhart flew when she vanished. The group that made the discovery is called Deep Sea Vision. They are an ocean exploration company based in South Carolina. In January 2024, they posted a video on Instagram showing the sonar image and talking about their mission. The team, made up of 16 people, had searched over 5,200 square miles of ocean. They used a high-tech underwater drone. This drone is one of the most advanced in the world and helped them scan the ocean floor in great detail. As people around the world reacted to the news, some experts were not convinced. Richard Jantz, a professor and expert in forensic anthropology, studied bones found on the island of Niku, Maroro, many years ago. These bones were first examined in 1940 by a doctor who believed they belonged to a man. But in 2018, Jantz used modern technology to study the same bone measurements again. He used a computer program called 4DISC and found that the bones actually matched Earhart's body type more closely than almost anyone else in the database. This led him to believe that Earhart may have passed away on Niku, Maroro, an island located about 640 kilometers south of Howland Island, where she was supposed to land. Jantz remains firm in his belief, even after hearing about the possible plane in the deep ocean. He said that unless someone can clearly prove that the wreck is her Lockheed 10E Electra, there is no reason to doubt the Niku Maroro theory. Still, this latest find continued to stir new excitement and debate among experts. Another strong supporter of the island theory is Richard Gillespie. He leads a group called the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery. Over the years, he has led 12 missions to find Earhart's plane, and has written several books on the topic. Gillespie is sure that Earhart ended up on Niku Maroro, and that there is strong proof to back it up. He said the new sonar image does not look like her plane at all. He even suggested the object might be a Navy fighter jet or something else entirely. According to him, the shape is wrong, and the wings in the image do not match the design of the Electra. Still, the original discovery caught the attention of many. Deep Sea Vision returned to the same site on November 1st to take a closer look. After more careful scanning, they found that the object was not a plane at all. It was a rock formation created by nature. The shape of the rocks just happened to look like a small aircraft, which fooled the sonar. Tony Romeo, the CEO of Deep Sea Vision, shared his reaction. He is a pilot and once worked in Air Force intelligence. He said the shape of the rocks was so perfect, it almost seemed like a trick. It looked too much like a real plane, and he couldn't believe it was just a natural formation. Romeo admitted that he had hoped the image was at least of a different aircraft or something made by humans. But once they realized it was just a group of rocks, the mood became serious. He said the team took a moment to process the discovery. Even though they were disappointed, they quickly got back to work. They knew there were other areas to search and continued exploring with new energy. The company shared an update on November 6, 2024, through another post on Instagram. They explained that they were still searching and had already expanded their exploration. After finding the rock formation, they scanned an additional 1,000 square miles of ocean. Altogether, the team has now covered over 8,000 square miles in their mission to solve the mystery. Though the latest lead did not give them the result they hoped for, Romeo and his team are not giving up. They still believe it is possible to find clues that will finally bring answers about what happened to Earhart. For many people, her story is more than just a mystery. It's something that continues to spark curiosity and inspire hope. Finding out what truly happened to her remains important to many. With new tools, better technology, and people who are still determined, the search continues. The deep waters of the Pacific may still hold the truth. Even if this recent discovery didn't solve the mystery, it reminded everyone that people are still looking. They haven't stopped trying to bring her story to a close. Many people would be thrilled if the Electra were discovered and the mystery solved. Amelia Earhart's incredible accomplishments made her a groundbreaking figure in aviation. Her bold spirit and trailblazing role as a pilot earned her lasting admiration. Even after her mysterious disappearance, she remains an inspiring symbol of bravery and determination, especially to women, with a legacy that continues to influence and inspire generations around the world. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.